this time last week, I don't think anybody in this area would have thought we would be addressing the deaths of 7 people and multiple other incidents that have followed on.
Lots of you are considering the situation in Middlesbrough, and a local MP says that residents are frightened to go out after a wave of crime in the city following that head-on collision on the A66 in which 7 people were killed, including 2 police officers, as a car was driven the wrong way down that road. Police have started a murder investigation after an aunt and her niece died in a house fire, but there have been many more incidents of violence and disorder in the city, including houses being rammed and cars set on fire. We want to get a feel for what it's like to be in Middlesbrough at the moment, so we're speaking to Canon John Loughin, who is the parish priest at St Andrew's Church in Teesville in Middlesbrough. John, good morning.
Good morning, Calum.
Thanks very much for speaking to us. As I say, we're trying to just get a sense of this. Some newspapers are referring to it just feeling like a war zone, that people are on edge. Some people don't know if they can leave their homes. What is it like to be there right now?
There's a whole mix of feelings. After the shocking crash on the A66, there was a strong sense of disbelief. And then for the house fire in Grangetown to follow that, and the tragic deaths of Natalie and Valentina, people are left stunned, and obviously people are worried about what's going to happen next. Yesterday afternoon, I was at a meeting with elderly parishioners, and there were rumours of the attack that happened, a stabbing incident in Eston yesterday afternoon. People were talking about a man had had his hands cut off. They weren't sure if there'd been a murder. And so there is a sense of anxiety among people and wondering what's going to happen next.
It's astonishing to hear that that is the reality that people are living with there, John. Has this been a kind of simmering problem, I suppose? Has there been an understanding or acceptance that gangland feuds have been underpinning life there for some time?
I've only been back up in this part of Middlesbrough, Teesville for the past 2 years. I was here 42 years ago, training to be a priest, and there has been a massive change in the area. Once all the traditional industries went, the steelworks, the shipyards, the docks, it did take the heart out of the communities, and there has been a sense of, I don't know if it's fair to call it gang violence, but unrest in certain parts of the area.
Yeah. And how has that been addressed, I suppose, John? Because from the outside, it could be that those issues you've raised, the kind of deindustrialisation, the dissatisfaction, and the difficulty that emerges from a period like that, if it goes unaddressed, then we end up in the situation we're in now. I don't know if that would be your perception, that actually that sort of tension has been left unacknowledged by the authorities, really, for too long.
I think to be fair to the local authorities, they're working hard in a very difficult situation. And I think, sadly, the focus on Teesside at the moment is all this bad news and these tragic deaths and the worries about what's going to happen in the future. But in a number of weeks' time, when the media headlines have moved on to other stories, the people in South Bank, in Grangetown, in Middlesbrough are still going to be faced with coping with their lives. And that's when support will really be needed to help people overcome what has happened.
What should that support look like, John? I imagine there's a place for you, for your congregation. I imagine there's a place for the police, actually, in all of this. My mind keeps going, actually, to a scheme that was deployed in Glasgow years ago. It was called the Violence Reduction Unit. And actually what this was deploying experts, police officers, those who could help, into basically all walks of life to try to curb a knife crime sort of epidemic, I suppose, that was proving to be a problem in Glasgow. And I remember speaking to somebody involved in that, and they would be in hospitals, and so if somebody came in with a stab wound, they would immediately go and speak to them, and it wouldn't be accusatory, it wouldn't be a sort of criminal justice pursuit. It would be about getting to know that person, understanding how that had happened, and sort of becoming a part of society to address that undercurrent of tension. So my mind just keeps going there. I wonder if that's the sort of interventions that are required on a community and societal level.
It's hard to say. Later today I'll be meeting with one of the community police support officers and with other church leaders, and we'll just be reflecting together how we can help the situation, and it will be community-led initiatives. One of the things in South Bank particularly, the people are very good at supporting each other in their need, and they'll stand shoulder to shoulder with one another. And I think it's going to be calling on these strong community resources to hopefully build a better future.
Yeah, sounds like a worrying time, John.
Yeah. This time last week, I don't think anybody in this area would have thought we would be addressing the deaths of 7 people and multiple other incidents that have followed on.
Yeah, indeed. Canon John Loughin, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Let's speak to Dal Babu, the former Chief Superintendent in the Met Police. Hi, Dal.
Hi, Henry.
I'm wondering what you think of what you're hearing. Andy Preston, the former mayor of Middlesbrough, doesn't want to make it look as though Middlesbrough is lawless and out of control. But it doesn't sound good, does it? It sounds like a whole area is being besieged.
I think we have to look at these things in perspective. I remember when I was working in London, I got the first ASBO in London, where there's a group of young men on these occasions who have caused quite a considerable amount of antisocial behaviour. Local residents were reluctant to make statements, and the ASBOs, the antisocial behaviour orders, you basically had on the balance of probability. So it's a civil matter as opposed to a criminal matter, which is beyond all reasonable doubt. And I was able to get an antisocial behaviour order against one individual and then subsequently others. And it basically made a difference. You could restrict who they could associate with, and that was often the worst issue amongst these, because as gangs, it gave them a little bit of more ability to intimidate people. So you could say you can't associate with these individuals, give them curfews, give them exclusion areas, and it was much better than to try and arrest them, get somebody to come to court and give evidence.
But I get the impression, Dal, that local MPs like Andy MacDonald are asking for more. We hear that 200 extra officers have been drafted into the area. I'm wondering, how do you think they should be deployed?
Well, I was just going to say, Henry, I cannot understand why the Home Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, decided to do away with ASBOs, and she introduced what's called criminal behaviour orders instead. Now, criminal behaviour orders can only be issued if you are convicted of an offence. So you still have to go through an issue where you have somebody who's prepared to make a statement, go to court, give evidence, and only then can you then get a criminal behaviour order. And I know the government are now looking at respect orders, and I think they'll be a really valuable. They're apparently like the old ASBOs, so we seem to have gone full circle. But I think we have to understand that sometimes these groups can intimidate, and it's not just Middlesbrough. I think it'd be unfair to say that it's just Middlesbrough.
Sure.
This happens across the country. I think there are groups of people who intimidate local people, and often on estates, working class communities, and they basically nobody's prepared to make a statement and give evidence. But if you can do it on the balance of probability, and if the police can say, this is what I've seen, this is the evidence I've seen, poor behaviour, and that's what I did when I got the first ASBO in London, is that people were not prepared to make statements.
Right, I'm just thinking, Dal, I'm surprised that people who might be involved in an organised crime group or some tightly knit gang with their own loyalties, with no stake in society, as Andy Preston said, no values, would be put off by an ASBO. I mean, after all, we're talking here about deep-seated, deep-rooted problems, generational perhaps.
Yeah, but Henry, the consequences are, if you associate with somebody who's in a gang, if you go into an exclusion area, if you basically are in a curfew, then you get sent straight to prison once you've got an ASBO. So, people may not care, but it gives people a bit of a respite. And it may actually give some of these people who are desperate to try and get out of this gang culture an opportunity to say, well, I can't associate with you. No, I can't go to that particular town centre. No, I can't go there beyond 10 o'clock at night.
All right.
It also gives those people an opportunity. So I think the devil will be in the detail. I think the government have said they're going to introduce respect orders. From my understanding is they will be like ASBOs, the old ASBOs. They won't be as restricted as the criminal behaviour orders. And I think it will then be an opportunity for the police working with the local authorities to say, right, who are the people that cause us greatest harm? When I was Director of Community Safety, I identified, along with the police and probation service, I identified 50 people that were causing the most antisocial behaviour and harm. And then we started working with those individuals and offering them help and support. If they didn't take that help and support, then they were arrested and some of them ended up in prison.
Well, Dal, let's see whether or not the Home Secretary, if she or her people are listening, or others in a position of authority might explore some of these options. Thank you for giving us the benefit of your experience, Dal Babu, former Chief Superintendent in the Met Police.